There he stood, the general. It had finally begun. Had he just pierced me with an arrow of grotesque size? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice. As I awoke, blushing on that blood-stained shore, confusion and a bruised sense of competence threatened my self-image. Once more entering this vast arena of sand and humiliation, I avoided that lethal arrow of his. But now another problem reared its ugly head. With him being miles away, how could I even reach that savage devourer of corpses? I kept running toward the general, towering on the horizon. Still, the uneven terrain made progress difficult, and the vastness made me feel like a grain of sand. But what was this? Was it raining with those horrendous arrows from the sky itself? Indeed it was. After miles upon miles, I stood in front of that legendary warrior who, once upon a time, fought in the shattering. Oh dear. Hiding under that enormous creature like nothing more than a bug, I managed to hit him once, and was squashed. I couldn't keep up. What was even happening? It was at this hour that I gave up counting my deaths. With any sense of pride long gone, I drowned myself in indifference. It was here that I decided to invoke the power of the other champions. Who was I to deny their participation in the festival? Truth be told, I hadn't been considering the well-being of the other warriors, or their dreams. With unselfishness now blossoming in me, I generously began to summon the hopeful comrades. And Alexander himself, that dearest jar. But none of this even mattered in the end, as that terror from above pierced me. And dying, I was forced to witness the spectacle unfold without me. So that was what you got for thinking of others. But what really made me suffer wasn't the general with his outright vile attacks, but rather the fact that these so-called fellow champions robbed me of a clear view. Helpless and incompetent as they were, suffering from their distinct lack of will and abilities of reasoning, I began to experience death as part of a collective. Such joy. And then I realized something. Being both maidenless and impotent, they were evidently warriors only in their imagination. At my wit's end, and desperately beginning to contemplate outlandish tactics of war, I noticed several of those glowing messages between the two dry patches of land. The water seemed shallow and easily crossed. But of course, that was not the case. How silly of me to presume something would be straightforward. Who was I kidding? Why even bother trying to kill that nightmarishly oversized brute? It could not be done. But listening to the waves as they reached the shore, and seeing the bloodstains on the sand, I realized something crucial about this circus. I didn't need any of those charlatans of war. I already had all the help required. Trusty Torrent and brave Alexander. All of these horrendous trials led me to this very moment, and as I once again summoned my dear friend, we began what was to be our last attempt at defeating the dreaded general. While Alexander materialized and began his slow but steady march toward that fiend, I drew the attention and willingly put myself in the line of fire. Standing in front of that ferocious warrior, I fought like never before and endured fierce attacks. Even though the enormous creature was equipped with armor clearly crafted by masters of ancient times, I crushed him with my great mace, ignoring any lewd metaphorical implications while doing so. Like brothers in arms, we cornered that foul creature and began to punish him. We wanted to return the degradation suffered in this wasteland. By the gods, his power was unmatched. And the general seemed to draw energy from the earth itself, strengthening his two giant swords with what seemed to be a thick layer of rock. But despite this, we still kept hurting that abomination with a gleeful sense of satisfaction. And would you know it, he gave up. Alexander and I gasped and looked bewildered at each other. Had we just won? But at that instant, a huge and fiery meteor came down on us from the sky. No, please say it wasn't so. That god-awful beast, devoid of any humanity or decency, had taken the life of my only friend. I lost myself in the haze of anger and sorrow, not noticing the scars I received, or caring one bit. Alexander was gone, and jumping onto Torrent, I desperately tried to rekindle, if nothing else, just an ember of faith in this fruitful endeavor. Screaming within that I would avenge my dear friend, I made the decision to call upon the other champions, promising that Alexander's sacrifice wouldn't be in vain. I summoned the other warriors to join this battle for the ages, regardless of them lacking what Alexander had in abundance. That cursed general had to be sent into the oblivion beyond. By the gods, his attempts at retribution were outright bothersome, and he kept pushing, without a doubt somehow sensing his impending demise. It was happening. We could all feel it. The air hummed as we sought to perform a ritualistic killing. While recalling those fallen, none other than the friend I had thought gone returned to our midst and joined the pinnacle he himself had made possible. Even though I had arrogantly deplored the others as feeble-minded warriors lacking abilities and equipped only with alarmingly mundane wits, I ended up accepting them as equals in this singular battle. We were all but specks of dust, yearning for one glimpse of the divine. And we happy few, we band of brothers bore witness to the death of the general. A foreboding silence fell upon the land, and with the others suddenly gone without a trace, I found myself alone once again in this vast space of emptiness. Yet, shooting stars began to appear on the celestial canvas above me, and before long, a bright and glowing stream of flickering lights dominated the desert. By the gods! A huge and shining object pierced the night sky heading west, only to fall to the ground somewhere far from here, blinding me and making the world itself tremble.